Hey everyone. Okay, so I guess the first thing on the docket to talk about with this chapter is that in his desperation to finish things, All for One, from what I can see, transforms himself into what I can only describe as a quirk amalgamation bomb, with Bakugo standing in the direct line of sight of the attack, and at the end of the chapter. And honestly, I'm generally not sure how to feel about this one, because on one hand, I've been conditioned to distrust setups like this, as there's usually a last minute way for the character to escape death and to escape death from these moments where it feels like they're going to die, and that's even with the that's me feeling this way even with the chapter leaning very heavily into the idea that yes, this is Bakugo's final moments. So I'm I'm not entirely convinced he's going to die. I'm not entirely convinced he's going to die until I see it happen. So but if Horikoshi does follow through with actually killing him, then I will give my full give my full praise, my full on respect and praise to the man for actually doing it, especially considering how popular Baku is. But again, I'm holding off judgment on whether or not on whether I'm reserving my expectations for whether Bakugo's going to die here until next week, where we know for sure. But and what direction like this goes, because again I if Horikoshi does kill Bakugo, then all the praise in the world, because the man's got some serious in that situation. The man's gonna have some serious balls for just killing one of the more popular characters in the series. But if he doesn't, yeah, I'll just, like I said, I'll just know for sure. I'll If he doesn't, then whatever. But yeah, it's like I don't think. Yeah, it's like I'm not having high expectations for whether or not of thinking that Baku's gonna die here. Honestly, um, with that said, let's talk about All For One himself, because we dive a lot more into the man's psychology and just what's been driving him all this time, and it's really, and looking at the more flashbacks and whatnot, it's really kind of fucked up just how obsessively possessive All For One was, and even now is of his brother. Like, this is the kind of chapter that whenever he's fought a new holder of One For All, in All For One's perception, it's like he never really sees the person themselves, only his little brother Yuichi, as in All For One's eyes, because it's a quirk he gave to Yoichi, because it's a quirk that only solely belongs to Yoichi. Even after passing it on, I think the only one he ever truly acknowledged beyond like Yoichi is the only one who's ever truly acknowledged, but only because he perceives Yoichi as his. Yoichi is someone he belongs. Yoichi is someone that belongs to him, that belongs to All For One. And like the only one he's ever truly acknowledged beyond this, his brother, is Kudo and possibly All Might. But even then, the latter's case, I'm sure he found a way to tie it all back to his brother as well. Because yeah, as I said, the moment he and his brother were born, All For One had given his brother a name, Yuichi, solely, which translates to basically being, which translates to which basically translates to meaning Yuichi belong you his property, basically. He it is that name Yuichi was a means to say that he belongs to All For One. Yet Yuichi himself kept opposing him, because All For One refused to acknowledge his brother had autonomy and a will of his own, even after giving him his quirk, which at the time we all know All For One thought by giving Yuichi a quirk, it would give him more control over Yoichi, but ironically only served to make him more resistant, even more so. Though I think this chapter really put into perspective just how much All For One has only ever been his own worst enemy. Like, his obsession with his brother has served to do nothing but create this continuous perpetual cycle, simply because he sees the quirk and his brother as nothing other than objects he is entitled to. And in that sense, a lot of what we see here, it's really interesting how a lot of what we see in this chapter is really nothing new from what we were told to All Might's from All Might's history lesson to Izuku all the way back in like the initial beginning of the series. But it's also one of those things where seeing it play out is a completely different experience from what we were told. And yeah, All For One himself is like, I All For One himself is very much that, like, he just sees these things as things that belong to him as well. All that said, though, we also get a look into how the cycle of passing down One For All started with Kudo, and that in those like initial years, One For All was basically nothing more than a dud. Was still nothing more than a dud quirk, as the third user Bruce had said that he still had his quirk, but that there was a secondary quirk factor that was just basically a dud. But you don't need a crystal ball to see where this is headed, which is to say Kudo is the one who started the process of fostering One For All, helping to make it what it is today. And in that respect, you could say All For One isn't necessarily wrong in saying Kudo's to blame for starting this whole cycle, at least when it comes to One For All. But at the same end of the day, it's still All For One's avarice, his greed, his everlasting campaign for control is what ultimately spurned this to happen to begin with. He just refuses to acknowledge the part he had to play in it all. If anything, the only thing Kudo is technically responsible for is starting the cycle of One For All. Like, even though technically you could say that the cycle started with Yuichi, like, it was with Kudo where the whole One For All cycle it truly began in a way. With that said, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. From on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll, be sure to notification bell, subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight Renee signing off. Bye, everyone.